And we're live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Sheep Kashir podcast, where we talk about people, politics, and popular culture. I'm your host, Austin Creed. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Today, we're going to talk about Darwinism and distortions in modern society. Now, I'm going to give a brief disclaimer. I talk about this from a male perspective because obviously I'm a man. I will bring in women, like a woman-ish perspective but I will always come at it from a male perspective, and that's really all I can do. I mean, I know that seems obvious to most people, but I wanted to give that just out the gate anyway. Because the stuff we're going to talk about, it might become relevant. So I'm just going to give that as a disclaimer. But we're going to talk about survival of the fittest. We're going to talk about male weakness in America especially, but in the West in general as well, because I think it applies to the entire West. And then we're going to talk about the mental health pharmaceutical complex. I've never heard anybody else use that term. That's just something that I've decided. That's what I've decided to call it. Because, look, in my opinion, most doctors they're pushing these out like Pez candy. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't know the distinct situation. All I know is my personal experience when your diet, your exercise, and getting some direction in your life, now that's the best medicine you can ever have, as far as I'm concerned, in my opinion, of course. And yet, they'll just give you a pill, or they'll say, oh, it's not your fault. No, it's the government's fault. It's not your fault. It's someone else's fault. No. I'm not buying it. Not buying it. So that's why we're going to talk about this today. Before we really hop into it today, I want to give a disclaimer and tell you that I ask a lot of questions throughout the show. And if you want to answer any of these questions, you can find me on Twitter at Austin Creed and follow me over there. I post questions that lead up to the show and in between both shows as well. So if you want to engage over there, if you want to ask questions, comment, and engage with the community over there, you're more than welcome to do so, because I'm getting more and more active over there. If you go over there, you'll find there's a link to the mothership page for this channel, and there's a donate button that sends you over to the Patreon, and I'm working on getting more content for the Patreon supporters over there, and there will be exclusive based on different tier lists. So if that interests you, go ahead and head over there. All proceeds go to helping the channel grow and getting this message out there to more people that need it. So we're going to hop right in though. First thing we're going to talk about is natural selection. Now, to me, it doesn't matter so much where you side when it comes to whether you like Darwin, you don't like Darwin, you think he was full of crap, you think he was a genius. I personally think he was very smart. I don't agree with everything he ever said. I don't think I agree with anybody on everything they've ever said. However, what I will tell you is this. Natural selection is something that's been really overlooked. And I'll tell you exactly why I'm saying that. It's overlooked because we seem to think we've evolved to a point where, oh, we live in a democracy. We need to protect the weak, and the strong need to give back. When does that ever happen in human history? I want to know it. It doesn't work. You need to help yourself. And if you can't help yourself, then it doesn't matter what anybody else does for you. You will not be helped. It's as simple as that. Now, of course, I'm the bad guy for saying that, but I'm going to say it again. We need more natural selection here. That doesn't mean if you're weak, you die. You're going to die. Everybody dies anyway. Everybody bites the bullet sooner or later anyways. What I'm saying is we need to stop promoting weakness as a virtue, and we need to realize that the people who are strong, mentally, physically, spiritually, they're going to succeed, and we shouldn't penalize them. Life has become a game where if you succeed too much or you fail too much, you're punished for it. Now, I don't know if any of you play games out there, whether it be board games, video games, VR games, whatever, but any game where you get punished for being proactive or is not great. It kind of makes it difficult to really get into the game. You get punished for being strong, you're not going to want to play that game, right? But that's what real life is. If you get to a certain amount of money, you're paying more taxes. You get penalized for being proactive. You get penalized for being a virtuous person in that You're actually exercising your virtues and vices to get success and achieve victory and break your chains. And yet that's somehow a bad thing. I don't understand that. Could somebody make that make sense to me? I don't get that. But nonetheless, we're gonna hop right back into the main story. I'm gonna pull up an article that I think will be extremely important for all y'all to see. So bear with me for 1 second. I'm gonna pull this up. Hold on, let me. Sometimes my camera lags out a little bit. Give a brother 1 second real quick, because you'll appreciate this, and I'll tell you why. For those of you who are not really up to date on what's going on in society today, the middle class is being punished. That's number one. And number two, let's look at, I'll show you this video in a second, but what I really want to talk about is this. Let's say, so we're at National Geographic right now. We're going to look at Charles Darwin and what he talked about in natural selection. I want to get it right from the source, so this is where we're going to dive in. It says, English naturalist Charles Darwin. If you don't know who Charles Darwin is, you need to read a book. The idea of natural selection after 5 years of a voyage. So he traveled all over the place to get this theory. Now, there are rumors that he stole some of it. I'm not going to touch on that because I don't know enough about it. I've heard a lot, but you need to verify things before you just say conclusively one way or the other. Assuming things is an element of weakness, and we're going to touch on that in 1 second. Weak men, yes, you weak men out there, you, my friends, unfortunately, you're the problem. It's not the ladies. You the problem. I'm sorry. Don't get mad at the messenger. I'm just telling you the way it is out here. And if that's too much for you, I don't know what to tell you. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep reading this article. Natural selection, let's see, what does it say? Natural selection is a process through which populations of living organisms adapt and change. Individuals in a population are naturally, oh gosh, I can't read. What is going on today? Individuals in a population are naturally a variable, meaning that they are all different in some way. Now, those differences are not bad or good. They just mean that they're different. You see different people in society all the time, whether it be they have different intelligence levels, they have different emotional intelligence, whether you believe in that or not. They have different physical abilities. All those things are different traits. But the variations in these traits means that some individuals have traits better suited for the environment than others. Society has changed over time because the people change and their attitudes change and their desires change. And those who are strong and they stick around and they are able to adapt, they survive, and the ones who don't, they don't. That's the way it goes. And we're going to touch on why weak men are really the biggest danger out here. It's not really the ladies. Ladies, y'all may do some goofy things, but you're not the problem out here. I blame a lot of this on the weak men. Although there are some women who are, I believe, huge additions to the problem, but they are not. They are symptoms. They are not the disease. The disease is weakness. Mostly male weakness is the big disease out here. And I'll prove it to you in a minute. Watch this. So Darwin chose the name natural selection to contrast with artificial selection or selective breeding that is controlled by humans. If you look at, that is seen a lot in farming, in agriculture, and animal husbandry. If you look into the breeding of animals to make them maybe more gamey, they have more meat, they have more muscle, they breed them a certain way to enable them to be better in the marketplace. Now, for those of you who don't know, this actually also applied to human slavery as well back in the day. This was a similar practice going on as well. I am not going to touch too much on that because I don't want to get thrown off YouTube, but I will tell you this. If you look at the demographics today and you look at who is really good at certain activities and who isn't, you'll realize why that happens, because you'll look back at the horrible atrocities in American history and you'll realize why certain things are the way that they are, and it's really sad when you really look at it. You'll make that connection. If you can read between the lines of what I'm saying, you'll realize what I'm pointing at, and most people won't tell you that. It's really sad. Well, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna hop in to this video. I'm gonna say fair use to valuetainment short clips. I'm gonna call fair use on them. We're gonna be watching a video on Andrew Tate and what his view is. Now, I know it doesn't matter to me where you stand on him. I don't agree with everything he says. I don't agree with all the things he says. On this, I think he's on the right track, which is why we're going to talk about it today. That is why we're watching this video. So give me 1 second here. All right, here we go. Fair use to valuetainment. Here we go.
I was a feminist, and she was saying that we need to teach men not to rape. And I said, my dear, I love how idealistic you are, but I am realistic. Men are already taught not to rape. She's like, no, we need to go and change language at school and rewrite history and do all the shit they're trying to do to make.
Does anybody else hear that? The rewriting of history? Anybody else see that in today's culture? I do. I see it all the time, everywhere I go. Everybody sees this. And if you haven't seen it, I don't know where you're at. Because this is all over the place. This is everywhere. And this is why he's talking about it. Most people won't talk about this. This is one of the reasons why I like some of the things that Andrew Tate says. All right, we're going to keep going.
Make men weak because they think that weak men don't rape, which is another argument I want to come back to because weak men are the most dangerous men on the planet. Let's talk about that later. But I said, no, people already understand that rape is wrong. Unfortunately, human nature, some people don't care about doing wrong things.
Can anybody argue with that? Can anybody argue that? He makes a very good point. He makes a very, very valid point here. Let's keep going.
We should teach people not to steal, but they still steal. Would you agree that everyone says don't steal? The Bible says don't steal. The Quran says don't steal. Schools say don't steal. Everyone says don't steal. People still steal. So if I were to take $1 million in cash and walk down the street at night in the worst part of town holding it, to a degree, I would have some responsibility. When I got robbed.
Hello? What do you want to say about this? This is what's called accountability, and this is what a lot of people refuse to take. They refuse to take accountability because they don't like the fact that men or women, they don't like it. People don't like to blame themselves. They like to say, oh, it was her fault, or it was his fault, or it was somebody else's fault. It was society's fault, not my fault. Using Andrew's example of, hey, if you walk around with money at night in the back alley somewhere and you get robbed, my friend, the fact that you did that is stupid. And the second thing is you have some accountability to take for that. Not all, but a lot of it. Let's just be honest here. Ladies, y'all ain't off the hook either. I'm not saying that if you're in a back alley and you don't, no one deserves to be raped, no one deserves to be raped, no one deserves to be deleted, no one deserves any of that. That's not what I'm saying here. The problem is, if you put yourself in a position where something like that is very likely to happen, it's not your fault that it happened. It's your fault that you were there for it to happen. You get what I'm saying? You are responsible for your actions, and the other person is responsible for their actions. That's how this works. But people want to pretend and say, oh, well, it's not my fault. Well, what's not your fault? The whole situation? What you did is not your fault? Let's keep going.
The police would come and say, why did you do that? People would say, Andrew, why did you do that? You have to protect yourself from things. You can't just rely on the ideological hope that other people in the world are going to be perfect and infallible. Or that
yeah, you can't. You can't just sit here and pretend like everybody's great, everybody's amazing, and no matter what you do, you're just going to sit there and you're going to get away with it. No. No, my friends, you're not. You need to realize this, because if you don't realize this now, you're going to make mistakes, and then you're going to try to blame other people, especially if you're a guy. You blame other people, nobody cares. And if you're a woman, you might get away with it after a while, but then you become the boy who cried wolf and nobody cares anymore. This is the kind of culture where it's everybody else's fault. That produces the victim culture and the weakness that I was talking about earlier. And why the weakness is so dangerous, especially for men, because you need to be strong. You can't afford to be weak. If you're trying to be, if you're a man and you're weak, that's it. It's a wrap. You're done. You're not going to be able to do the things you want to do, and you're going to be blaming everybody else, and no one is going to care. They might pretend that they care. They might give you the, oh, yeah, I care, No, they don't. They don't care. What are you talking about? They don't care. Let's keep going.
The law is going to prevent it. You have to say, no, I can't walk through the ghetto at 2 a.m. with $1 million in cash. I take personal responsibility. She agreed. I said, then by extension, would you agree that the smartest thing a woman can do to prevent rape is not to sit here on a podcast and try and change the way men think and talk about your bullshit, but to take some degree of personal responsibility and not put yourself in dangerous situations?
Can anybody argue with that? You see, this is the kind of talk that got him canceled, the talk that got him in jail, the fact that this is the kind of stuff we're talking about here. This is the problem. He is being punished for pointing these things out, not the people. The people would rather not. People would rather see if you said 10 things, right, and people agreed with 9%, 9 out of 10, and there was one thing they hated. They'd throw out the baby with the bathwater, and then not only that, they would take out their inner pain on you instead of realizing, wait a minute, but I have something I can learn here. There's something for me to learn. There's something for me to gain. There's something I could be doing to really learn and engage and grow as an individual and a human being. But no, people would rather say, hey, you know what? It's not my fault. In fact, because I feel bad, I'm going to make it your problem. That's what people say. And it's disgusting. Let's keep going.
I'm not saying that's going to prevent all rape. I'm not saying that rape is okay. Rapists should be executed. I'm not saying that every single woman who was ever assaulted could have prevented it. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying the smartest thing a woman can do is say, this is dangerous. Going home with this guy I just met is dangerous. What?
That's a great point. Hey, are any of you guys on dating apps? I deleted that shit. I'm done with it. The whole thing is garbage. Okay? It's a waste of your time. Don't do it. Especially if you're a guy. Odds are stacked against you. You don't want to do that. But he makes a great point. With all this meetings, what happened to stranger danger? I was taught that as a kid. Was anybody else taught that as a kid? The stranger danger attitude? People you don't know, you should, feel them out a little bit. Make sure they're not sketch. They're not dangerous. No? Am I alone here? Anybody else been taught that when they were a kid? Andrew makes another great point. And like he said, no one's advocating for rape. No one's advocating for these horrible things to happen to people. The problem is, they're happening. And we need to identify why they're happening, and nobody wants to take accountability. It needs to be 100% one person's fault and 0% everybody else's fault. Well, no. No, that's not realistic. That's not how that happens. Let's keep going.
Walking through this area by myself is dangerous. Let me call a taxi. Let me call my brother. Let me go with my husband. Isn't that a more intelligent way to teach women to prevent themselves from being raped?
Husband. Really? Husband? How many women out there actually have husbands anymore? And not just a husband. I'm talking about non-henpecked actual men out there. And ladies, I gotta focus on y'all for a second. What is it with the intimacy at the beginning of a relationship is great. I've seen this in my own friends, by the way. This is not me making this up. What is it with the intimacy being amazing at the beginning, and then towards the end, there reaches this point. People refer to it as the bait and switch of something suddenly changes in their relationship, and all of a sudden you're just out of luck, and it's like, well, my wife isn't giving me any intimacy. I can't go out there and date other people. I'm just stuck. No, when it comes to stuff like prawn, and I know I'm mispronouncing it, you should get what I'm saying here. When I talk about prawn, the people who are watching it, they have you believe that it's these lonely guys out here who are consuming all of it. No, 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 no. Married guys, huge market for that. OF, huge market for married guys who are not getting intimacy from their wives. Well, let's keep going.
As opposed to telling them, you can do whatever you want, walk around in the middle of the night naked, it's no problem. Men shouldn't rape, men are the problem. I said, what you're trying to do is illogical. What I'm trying to say will actually prevent rape. So what you're saying, when you're telling girls, do whatever you want, men are the problem, you're convincing women to put themselves in situations where bad things might happen to them.
Yeah. We see that all the time. Like I said, there's this 100% victim, 100% villain mentality when it comes to a lot of things, especially in the court of public opinion. And yet here we are. Tate's talking about this, and people get mad at him for talking about this stuff. My friends, if the truth triggers you, you are only upset because you feel guilt or shame for what you're thinking or what you've done or what you're doing. That is not my fault. That is not his fault. That is not anybody's fault but your own. If you feel convicted, you feel angry, it's only because you are ignoring reality, and that is why you're upset. You will never be upset if your thoughts are aligned with reality, but if they are incongruent, you will be unbelievably frustrated and mad. So I don't know what else to tell you on that, but we're going to keep going.
Whereas I'm saying, listen, women and men, look after yourselves. I'm a full-grown man, 4-time kickboxing world champion. There's places I don't go alone. Like I came here with security. That's called being an intelligent adult.
Look at that. See? It's not saying you're weak if you have protection. Whether it's physical protection, emotional protection, my friends, at the end of the day, all you have is you. And yet here people are saying, "Oh, no one's gonna hurt me. I'm doing great. Don't sweat it. Don't sweat it, man. I'm good." No. What kind of goofy attitude is that? Let's keep going.
So this is what I was trying to say. I was trying to say women need to protect themselves and bear some responsibility to make sure they don't put themselves in situations where bad things can happen to them easily. I'd like to think that's a pretty logical point. No. Andrew said rape's fine. Andrew said...
Exactly. He says that rape is okay. He says that going after people again is against their will is good. No, it's not good. It's bad. He never said that. You see, this is the problem. People will take what they hear and then they'll apply their filter to it and then say, "Oh, well, because I heard X, they said X when they really said Y, but you heard X, and so therefore that's what they said." No. That's not how it works. That is not how this works. But I think you get the point of what we're talking about here. I think you get the point. Because the weak men we're talking about, that's the attitude they have. That's the attitude they take. And my friends, this is no laughing matter. That's why I say that. All right, let's go back. Hold on, give me 1 second. All right, give a brother 1 second here. But my friends, here's what I don't understand. When it comes to reality, like I just said, people like to say, "Hey, you know what? I'm upset, and because I'm upset, I'm gonna make it everybody else's problem." No, that's unacceptable. That is not okay, and it's not like I said, it's not in line with reality. That is a weak thing to do. And yet here we are having this discussion because we can't afford to not have it. I wish I could sit here and tell you that, we need to just always believe everybody. We need to always have a black or white answer, and we always need to do this. No, it just doesn't work. I wish I could sit here and tell you that, but I can't in good conscience say that because it just doesn't work that way. So I don't know what else to say about this. Like, it's sad. It is. But natural selection always goes through. And here's the other thing I want to talk about. Weakness is promoted as a, if you need mental health treatment, I understand. Everybody's been there, or a large amount of people have been there. But you don't need medication. Look, I would love to debate a doctor on this, because I have experience with these drugs and I know what they do to people. I'm not just one of these schmucks who comes out here and says, oh, well, I read one thing and therefore I have an opinion on it. No, I've taken these drugs. I know what they do. And I didn't just take it once. I took it over months. I know what they do to people. I know how an effect they have. And if you mix that with marijuana or alcohol, it's a wrap. It's a cocktail of poison. It's a cocktail of epic proportions that could damage you. So that's part of the problem out here. And no one talks about that. And the pharmaceutical companies make a lot of money off this as well. It's always, if you follow the money, a lot of things in life will make sense. A lot of things make sense when you look at the money. A lot of the distortions you see in reality is when if you look in society today and you feel like it's being distorted, it's because it is. You realize that once you reach a certain echelon of society or of consciousness, you realize that what you were told was largely inaccurate and complete and utter rubbish. You'll quickly find that out. But I don't blame you if you haven't, because if you're young especially, that's all you've ever known. You haven't known anything different. If you're young like me, that's all you've been told. I had to figure these things out because they were slowly built into me over time, and that's why I know these things. Sorry. Allergy season here. But I don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over again. I think you get the point. However, the mental health thing is something that's become more and more of a scapegoat. People will talk about, oh, I have anxiety and I have depression. First of all, depression and anxiety are not bad things. When it comes to if you're a creative thinker and creative individual, they should be fuel for you to create. You should not succumb to a drug. Now, if your doctor says to take something, obviously you take it. I'm not a doctor. I'm not trying to tell you to not listen to them. They're the professionals. All I'm saying is you need to not throw away common sense when it comes to dealing with everyday stuff. And when it comes to mental health especially, they'd sooner give you a medication than they would tell you to get on a bike and go for a run, go for a walk, hit the weights, get your diet right, get your sleep schedule ready. Who stays up all night, eats like garbage, and then wonders why they are not happy and they're depressed and they're anxious? Well, duh. It's because you're out getting very little sleep, you're not eating well, you're probably not working out, and you're sabotaging yourself every way you can, and then you're wondering why your life is not taking off. That goes across racial lines, goes across ethnicity, goes across gender, everything. This applies to everybody. Weakness is not necessarily just because you are weakness does not mean you are weak. Everybody has moments of weakness. Strength comes from your desire to always succeed and strive for better. End of story. But anyways, my friends, I'm going to stop it here because I'm starting to repeat myself. But like I said, I pose a lot of there are questions built in there, and sometimes I got to pose questions out here. So if you want to respond on anything I said, any questions I may have posed during the show, find me on Twitter, follow me over there, and ask your questions. I will get to them in the order with which they are received. And until next time, God bless you, God bless your family, and God bless these United States of America. My friends, it has been my pleasure, and I look forward to coming back for the next episode. Peace.